Hello, YouTube. Episode 9. 9. um, I am recording during it's raining outside, and I've been watching Love Is Blind. It is a fun show about people who meet in a pod, and what they do is they talk like legit, and if they within a period of like they don't know visuals, there's nothing, it's just two people in two different pods with a screen between them, and you get to spend your time for like a week talking to whoever you want to talk to, building a relationship with everyone, and at the end, they decide, hey, I want to marry this person, so they just go like, okay, I'm going to marry this person, and so they like propose. And I don't know, I love this show so much. But this isn't a design podcast about the show. I'm not here to discuss why I love Love Is Blind, and why it's just fantastic. But I would like to try to design a game via podcast that conceptualizes the very notions of this TV show, Love Is Blind. So, episode 9, because yesterday was Valentine's Day. When I'm recording this, it's not when it was released, but it's Valentine's Day yesterday when I record this. So we are gonna do this. So, I think that what makes this game, what would we focus on, is the notion that it's got to be a two-player game, right? Like, it can't not be a two-player game. I think that if you're gonna do this game, it's got to be two players. You gotta have, okay, so I imagine what it should be is that, each player creates their character. Or like multiple players create characters. Maybe this is like can be a multi-game where like there's multiple players, and each one decides like, hey, this is a person I would like to, and I want to spend the rest of my life with. You start to build your character's backstory and story through like a number of questions and discussions. Yeah, it could just be a two-player game. Yeah, let's make it a two-player game. Just sticking with two-player game. Okay, everybody with me? Two-player game. So we will do a two-player game, and each player together will collaboratively create this sort of character that each of them starts to sort of fall in love with. That's the notion behind the game. You will, you don't know the other person. We are only strictly focusing on the personality, the heart of the individual character. We do not think about the physical aspect of the character. This is what the game's going to be at the beginning. So it's first round, two-player game. You have a sheet, a character, and like I guess maybe you can fill out aspects of the character, and you have to have like your flaws and your like good sides, and if at the end of it, you two players decide that, hey, we want to move forward with this game, then the player proposes to the other player. Simple. If at any point in time the players are just like, I'm not feeling your character, then we start the game over and you trade new characters. And then your new characters have to keep doing this until you just go. So there's going to be like a nope moment in every game. Like, I guess we can have it like built into tiers. Like, you develop personality traits that each of you likes, and if you like it, then sort of like, okay, good, A is good, B is good, C is good, okay, we're now on D level, we're not E level, oh my gosh, we got all the way down to E level, and boom. We create the E level game, we create the E level And so that makes you go, you're okay. So we're gone this far. We want to get married. One of you just proposes, and that's the first round of the game. And I think that's a fun part of the game. Like, I think that's a fun part where you develop these personalities as a collaborative effort between you and a partner. I'm not really sure how we do it. I think there'd be like questions. I think there's things that have to be definitively defined by you. Like, I think that your partner can have we can have like a set of questions on the side. Like, there is 13, there's a possibility of X amount of questions, and you ask those questions, and if any questions is answered incorrect, is not like answers like hit your character the right way, then yeah, you can nope out. And that's how you do it. You go through 5 questions each, and if you get to the 5th question and you get to ask the 5th question, which develops the character, then your personalities have sort of bonded, and then you then start to have more of a discussion about like your life and your dreams. But yeah, I think some of the questions have to be heavy hit questions, like what is your deepest fear? And maybe it's not just 5 questions. Maybe then you have to go through like, I think there was like a long time ago, there was this thing that was like 42 questions or something to develop intimacy with anybody. That allows you to fall in love with anybody. And then at the end you have to like stare into each other's eyes for 5 minutes. But maybe like we steal a bunch of questions from that. But regardless of anything, I think there's going to be a very big like question and answer component where people just answer back questions. And I think that if your characters just don't gel, then you should just be like, nope. Because that's part of the game where you kind of go like, if you don't fall in love, you don't fall in love. You can't force it. But if you start to fall in love with the other character's character, like your character feels like, man, this character's really awesome. And your other character's feeling like, man, this person's really awesome. Yeah. Like, not man, like, just like, you know, if this person's really cool and this person's really cool, let's get married. And then you do. So, and then you propose, and so that happens, and you're prepared and married, and then you propose. Then the second part of the game is you see each other physically for the first time, and you see each other, and you get to discuss your physical and how you look and how your body looks, and I think there should be a really interesting thing where you get to describe your like ideal partner, and you get to do that like privately. You get to write down like, I am attracted to, like, my character is attracted to someone who is tall. My character is attracted to somebody who's typically blue eyes and gray hair. I don't know anime, but anyways, and so I typically like someone who's more cosmopolitan, and then the other person describes what they look like when they show up, and it's like, oh, does it match? Because like the whole thing with Love Is Blind is that you don't get to see what the other person looks like until after you propose. So you're building, you're sort of like hoping that relationship is more than enough. And that is a fantastic notion that like we have to do that. So the next part of the game is they go to a resort. So you get to have fun, and you get to talk, you get to do fun things and do general activities like playing on the beach, or swimming in the ocean, or eating good food, or you get to have very like more like fun and flirty questions, and that's what the whole notion is about the next one. You know, like that's the next portion. I think that's just like you get to do stuff. I think it has to just be light and airy. I think at this stage of the game with like deep talks and like, oh, there's a physical thing, like I think it just has to be light and airy and about like hanging out at a resort and having fun, right? And at any point in time, anybody says something, you can always nope out. And I think that's always going to be a thing in every round. You just nope out, like, I just don't want to marry you. And cool. So we've established round 1, round 2, then round 1, round 2, because I think the physical, like viewing someone physically and the resort thing can kind of just be the same thing. Like, we're now in physical meat space. Like, we're going to be in existence with each other. Let us now like deal with what this sort of like coalesced reality is. And then the third phase is like they move into an apartment together, and they live together for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, and this is, I think, where the whole crux of the game really should take place. I think this is like where you really get to like develop character, and you really get to like, you have to live. You get to meet family. You get to go through all these rigmaroles of like what's going on in life, and like jobs and money and all those other things. And I think that there's the cohabitation aspect of the game makes it very interesting. You actually live in a neutral apartment. You don't get to live in one of your own places. And I think that neutral apartment makes it very interesting. Like, you have to decide, like, I think before you start, what city you're all in. So like, I think the first season of Love Is Blind took place in Amazon, in Atlanta, and then the second one is taking place in Chicago, and this one is taking place in Japan. One is the one I'm watching, which is really fun. And I think that there's a thing where you have to meet the families, and you have to discuss how people like feel about you. And I think there's dice rolls that will determine how people react to you and how people feel about you. And I think you have to try to overcome these things if you want to get married. And I think there could be a thing where we have like a meter, and you kind of have to like fill this meter up in order for you to marry, because you have to get through all of these hardships and uncertainties and anxieties and fears. And I think that's like the fourth round is like this very like, what's life like? What does the day-to-day feel like? You know, you lived in a dream just talking in a nice pod, and you went to a nice resort and you got to be physical with each other and be in physical space with each other, and then now you're living in each other's lives and you're cohabitating, and you don't, you know, what's your bad habits and how do you feel and how do you quiet, and I think that notion makes the game really fascinating. Like, what is Love Is Blind, and how do we live with each other? And, you know, like, I fell in love with this person in a pod, and I don't know who they are, but I finally got to see them, and I fell in love with them before I even got to look at them. And that's very, like, that's a very Western, like, backward, that's a very, like, Western way of, like, you know, you're supposed to meet someone physically, you're supposed to be physical with them, and then you fall in love with them. And in this one, you flip it around, you fall in love with them, and you just through emotion and just through talking. And I think that's a very fascinating part of the game. And then you have to try to deal with the connecting the physical and the emotional things together, and being like, these things have to work together. And I think that's the interesting thing you have to develop. And then I think the fourth one is, you know, the wedding. And then you just plan this wedding, and you have to then get up on an altar, and then you have to decide at the end, I do, I do not. And that's the game. I think that like in the meat space game part of the third phase, you have to fill up this bar, and you have to like meet certain requirements of meeting family and friends, and answering questions about children, and answering questions about life and cohabitation. And you have to get over through arguments and fighting and misunderstandings and bad habits, and you have to try to, you know, connect your lives together. And I think there might be like a roll table we could create for the third phase. A roll table sounds very fun. Like, you have to go through all these events, and you have to fill this thing up in order for you to move on to the fourth phase. But if the fourth phase is too much, then, like, if the third phase is too much, then maybe just break there. And maybe that's the same with first phase and second phase. And maybe there's an expectation you have to sort of roll or hit, or numbers or something like that. That's how you get there. Or maybe it's just left to choice, a player choice. And I think that's another option that we really could consider. But I do like the notion that you play this game according to 4 phases. For the first phase, you develop a personality and connect, and you emotionally connect the characters, and the characters start to, like, you know, shared backgrounds, understandings, you know, sharing about truths and hardships. And you start this way. You start with the deep, and then you get into the fun and fluffy, and then you're like, and then after the fun and fluffy part, you have to go into the what's real life. What does existing in existence mean? And then once you've managed to cross all through those barriers, you get to the final one, and you have to decide whether you really are adamant on committing to one another. And that's what I think is like a Love Is Blind TTRPG would look like, in my opinion. I thought about maybe like LARPing the thing, but then I think it's so easy. Like I think a TTRPG, Love is Blind game, would be what I would make if I was designing it. And I think that's just a discussion. Like I was been watching this, going like, man, if I was to turn this into a game, this is what I would do. And legit, it is. I think it would be pretty fun. Well, if you like the idea, maybe I should make it. Let us know. Anyway, this is episode 9. I hope you have a happy Tuesday, and I love you, folks. Well, I don't know if I say I love you. I like you all a lot for the 1 or 2 or 3 people that actually listen. Have a good one.